Howdy, and welcome to Workshop Wednesday. It is that time again. I know it's just come too fast. We're actually going to be doing a whole strategy session. I'm going to go back to that slide. A whole strategy session about recurring billing reports. This is a strategy session, which means you don't have to be an implementer. You don't have to be the one that's actually in your GA or in your Google Tag Manager or Google Analytics or anything like that. This is just for those of you who are trying to use these things to move things forward. So let's talk about recurring billing. Of course, my name is Chris Mercer. I do go by Mercer, and I'm the co-founder here at measurementmarketing.io, where our content is featured on such platforms like Digital Marketer, Conversion Excel, Social Media Examiner, and of course, the courses that you will find at measurementmarketing.io itself. Now, what do? We actually help marketers, marketing teams, agencies know the numbers and grow the numbers. We do that by helping them learn how to use tools just like Analytics, Tag Manager, Data Studio, Facebook Analytics, and others. In this case, we're going to touch a little bit on Google Analytics, but we're going to jump into spreadsheets. I know it's kind of scary, but spreadsheets are incredibly useful when it comes to recurring reports. And I'm going to give you a free tool that you can use to actually start this on your own as well. And of course, with all of these trainings, we try to tie them into the measurement marketing framework, which is really 5 key pieces: planning, building, reporting, forecasting, and optimizing. Planning is all about knowing which questions you want to answer. In this case, questions around recurring payments. How many should I expect to get? How many should I expect to lose? You want to know that when you have a subscription service, right? How many months should I expect an average user is going to stick around? Or, okay, if I had 10 people this month, how many should I expect will be there next month? You want to be able to do that, right? Those are questions you're going to ask. The build out is actually measuring all of that, which hopefully for you, most of the data is already in your CRM when it comes to that. Whatever your cart system is has that information. Then you do the reporting, which I'm going to show you, and I'm going to give you a tool that you can use to actually go through and build these things out from hopefully pulling the information from your cart, which you can then use to start to forecast, right? When you understand what your numbers look like, you can start to forecast your numbers, and then ultimately you can then optimize. If you don't get numbers that you like, this is how you know. Like if your stick rate, right, the number of months that somebody sticks around, if it turns out it's 1.2 months on average, okay, maybe you've got a problem with the product, or you're overpromising, or something else is going on. You would then of course know where to optimize. All right. With all of these trainings, as we go through them, the idea is just one thing, one new concept is all you're looking for. One new takeaway, one new way of looking at something is all we care about here. This is can get very complicated, and it can get overwhelming with everything that you see back here. So just watch for one new idea, one new takeaway, practice that. Then you come back, rewatch this, and that's why we make them available for you. All right, let's get started. Strategy session, using recurring billing reports to improve your results. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump right in here. And I'm going to start with our old favorite Google Analytics. Now, in Google Analytics, this is for those of you who might be familiar with this, I just wanted to touch base on it very quickly. In the audience reports, there is this thing called Cohort Analysis. Cohort analysis is just a fancy way of saying a way to analyze or report based on groups. That's all it is. So in this case, it does it by users, and you can define the different user groups and then the result for the user group. I've changed the result in this report to be revenue per user. So this is one of those handy reports where we can say, oh, well, how much should a user be worth on day 0, day 1, day 2? And of course, you can change this by weeks and months and whatever else, right? So you can play around with this. Now, the reason I do not personally use this report is because I just don't think it's useful. The big reason I don't think it's useful is because Google Analytics is not great at knowing what a user is, right? Because when you and I think user, we think people. When Google Analytics thinks users, it thinks cookies and client IDs and all of that. And it's really not yet up to speed on people yet. So I do not trust this information. Also, this information it's only going to report what it's told. So if revenue is not reporting correctly, then you're not going to be able to use this anyway. But it's here. And I think ultimately maybe there is some trending information that could be useful. Like I don't think this is going to be anywhere near accurate. But if this was 10 cents and then maybe week 2 is 20 cents and maybe week 3 was, or week 1 here was 20 cents and then week 2 was 30 cents, I might be able to pick up with enough sample size. I might be able to say, well, it's, week 2, in this case, they'd be 3 times worth whatever week 0 was. Like maybe you can pick up something like that, but that's it. I can't really make many other decisions around that, mostly because of this concept of user in Google Analytics. So what we did is we were kind of forced to not really forced, that's the wrong word. We elected to move past analytics because analytics just does not do this well. Maybe eventually it will. There's obviously this report's still in beta. There's a lot of other stuff they got going on with cross-device tracking, and they're trying to figure out the whole user game, and that's a very, very complicated thing to solve. So while they are working on that, we thought, okay, well, let's not really rely on Google Analytics, because sometimes, as much as I personally love Google Analytics, it's an amazing platform, it doesn't mean it's the only platform. You have to expand out. So what we did is we created this tool, which I'm going to show you, and then you can then use it. So I'm going to show you how to use this. Now, again, this is not to say that you have to be the one building this thing out. I wanted to show it to you from a strategist perspective, kind of from a how to use this from a strategist to a strategist here. Then you can work with your team to say, hey, here's this report. Go make sure these details show up in the right spots. So the directions are on here, and I'll show you how to get this report in just a second. The directions are all on here, so you go through here and you update. There are some things you would need to do to customize it. So your implementers can help you with that because you just need to follow these steps. Again, very step-by-step to get all of this in here. That done, now once you have it done, what it looks like is this. So you've got this all sort of set out, and then you can go to File and then make a copy. And when you make a copy of it, you'll go through and do your whole setup. Now, the way that this works is you dump your data here, and these columns with the little asterisks are the required columns. So make sure you have at least this stuff. If you have other stuff, great. This tool will be changing, and we're always getting new suggestions on things and things that I personally want to have at it for that we use it for. So we'll be adding things like annual cycles and quarterly cycles and having things automatically figure out. For now, it's just month. Probably we'll end up doing daily or weekly if that becomes a thing that people need as well. But essentially, you make sure that you've got your contact information in here. So again, name, email, whatever you want to put in there, the contact ID, what the product is that they're purchasing. So super important there. The billing amount for how much it was billed for. And then, status is inactive or active. Again, sort of is up to you if your platform gives you that. We use Infusionsoft. It comes default by the platform. So we just created that column to make it nice and easy to copy and paste. And that was the goal of building this. We wanted it to be very, very simple so we can give it to somebody on our team, have them pull the report from Infusionsoft, literally copy and paste it into this, and it's done. There is no other formatting that needs to happen. Now, what is the end result? What actually happens with this, and how can we actually start using it? So if I pull in retention rate, so I have now scrolled down. So actually, I'll step back here for just a moment. This shows us when they were last billed. So everything in this example was billed in the last payment of June 1st. So if we do this and you see charges, number of charges. So if June 1st was the last bill, there were 2 charges prior to that. So that means June they billed. They also billed for May. They must have started in May. This one, June 1st was last billed, and it was only 1 charge, which means they probably started in June. This one was they last billed in June, but there's 3 charges, which means June billed, May billed, and before that was April, so they probably started in April. So there's all of this stuff that happens that this spreadsheet will help you to calculate. That's what ends up here in this retention rates. And you can see here, April, there's our April person who billed once after another. Then we've got the May person who billed a couple times, and there's the new June person who came around. So we have all of those details back here. So that's how this works. Now, ultimately, what this tool will allow you to do is you're going to actually come in here. Once you make a copy and set up everything properly, you'll be able to do a drop down, and you'll be able to select. Oops, let me go back. Actually, let's bring this back up here so you can see this. We'll do it like this. You'll be able to select by product. So you can say, here's my product number 1, here's my product number 2, here's my product number 3, and this will have a drop down for you. Once you make a copy of it, it'll have a drop down for you that says product number 1, product number 2, product number 3, or all products. And if you got everything set up correctly, you'll have your retention report automatically show you what your expected retention rates are. Now remember, retention rate is just how many people are you keeping of this group, and this group is just identified by the month that they became a buyer, essentially, of that product. So of that group, how long can you expect to keep them? That's all this is. So you can see April 2019 and the details of that particular group. We had 1 buyer, and they stuck around for 3 months so far, right up to date. Now, in this case, if it was July, again, we had the updated data here, it was up through June. Let's pretend it was July 15th, right? Well after the last bill date of June, and they were all technically inactive. At that point, everybody would have churned out, right? There is no other month, so they're all back down to 0. So this would be an accurate version, in addition to being a useful version, to kind of get an idea of, okay, here's what our retention rates could be. Now, overall, again, it comes down to like, okay, what do you think the overall retention rate would work out to, right? And that's where you need to, you can start thinking about with more sample sizes, you'll get an idea. Like in this case, month one, yeah, I think everybody's going to stick around for month one. And then in month two, actually, I don't know, this is actually calculating right now. You know what I'm going to do? Let me bring ours over because I want you to see ours. This is what I get for trying to do these with no net, which I love doing, to be honest. But sometimes I just don't follow all the directions that we need to before I jump onto these, and I screw them up. So I'm going to show you what this actually looks like, and I'm going to do it. Give me just a second. Here's what I'm going to do. One I already have set up that I know is proper. So let me go back and here we go. Maybe I was just pulling up the wrong one. I probably was. In fact, I can tell you I know I was. Here we go. Okay, here's one that's much better. All right. So this will be a little easier to get through. It just doesn't have the directions on it. This is one of our prior versions, but I wanted to show this all filled out. So when you have your data, products, right, all coming through here, and you've got price points, and I just literally put in a bunch of fake data coming through. So now that we have that, here's what the retention rate will actually look like. And you'll see this. So this one is just not set up. I apologize. I probably should have just done a complete setup, but it's view only, so it's not going to work properly. So yours will, when you make a copy of it, you will not see the view only, and you got to readjust stuff, and then it'll start cranking along. And it should look like this once you do that. So in this case, I'm going through here, right? And this is pulling all of its data, and you can see each of the groups. So in January 2016, there was a buyer stuck around for 3 months and then left. In February 2016, there was buyers. We had 3 of them. They stuck around for 11 months, right? 12 months technically. And then, 2 of them dropped off, and there was one buyer that was still around for another 25 months, almost 2 years, right? So we have all of these different things. Again, for all different products that we have. Then what we can do is we can actually go through and we can sort by actually our products, right? So I can say, okay, my product, I want to see just, in this case, is just the one my product. So it won't change the difference here. But if I add in other products, it'll actually show up in the drop down. So when you have it all set up properly. But the way you use these reports is now I can see overall, let's pretend I have the one product to keep it simple. Overall, I can see, okay, 100% of my people are month 0, which means the first month they're going to stick around, obviously, because that's the definition of them buying. They stuck around. Everything will be 100%. The next month, according to this, I've got roughly, I can count on 92% of my people sticking around. By month 2, I should have 80% of my people. By month 3, I should be over 70% of my people. By month 4, I should have 60% of my people. And that's what I can actually have as a forecast based on these numbers going across. And these are just figured out by all the different, groups down below. Now, if I change something, let's say I changed something in December, right? In December and January, let's say I was changing and playing around with stuff here. And then, we started to have more, we reopened the cart or whatever it was. And then here's more details that are coming through. So in this case, I can say, okay, great. So did my changes work for those times? Because they might be different from when they're up here. That's why we allowed you to be able to look at this by month. So you can see this by month as well. And this report, if your head's spinning a little bit, totally understandable. This is absolutely one of those reports you must jump into and play with. You have to ride the bike a little bit with this. So you can't just watch me do it and be like, cool, I totally understand what's going on, because you probably won't. You got to get in here, give it to your builder, right? Give it to whoever's your implementer, give it to them and say, cool, here's this tool that we can now use. It's going to show us retention and it's going to show us churn, which is the opposite of retention. So when people leave, it's called churn, and you'll see that it's kind of the opposite here. So But I mostly use retention and stick, which is what I'm going to focus on. Because churn, again, is just how many people you're losing. Retention is how many people you're keeping. I like that. So just more positive way of looking at things. So here I can tell the February group, I kept 100% for February, which makes sense. Here, which was March for the February group, month 1, I kept 89%. My average was 92. So, okay, I'm keeping about 90%. Here, I'm about 90%. Here, about 90%. Here, about 76%. Do I go, okay, May group, what happened there? Why did I only keep 76%? Did I change something? Right? Like that's what I would look at and say, okay, is this just a glitch in this particular group? Was it a different traffic source? Like what happened here that caused this pattern to get out? Because I need to be able to make sure this isn't something that's going to happen. And then in June, I would look for July billing to come through and say, okay, did July bounce back to the 90% range, which is where it should be based on what my past data has been? Or does it stay around the 80% range, which would not be great because it means that we went down by 10 points, right? And so all you're looking at, again, is truth is in the trend, power is in the pattern. You look at the overall trend is going to be up here for you. And then down here, you make sure the group is just sort of maintaining its position in the trend. This would be a problem that I would look at. Now here again, 80%, you see 75, a little low, but maybe. You see the next month it's at 90, the next month's at 85. You're like, okay, cool. It's probably no big deal. But if this one drops down and this month, if it shows up here in 60s, let's say, there would be an issue. I would really look at this and say, well, what did we do with this group in May? Was it a new webinar funnel we created that brought them in and they're just churning faster? Was it a different trial offer that we did that just turns faster? Was it, some sort of target? Did we change something in the product that maybe is causing people to churn faster, that are new buyers? So it might be something like that. But it instantly in the numbers, you see the difference. Like you can see this split in the pattern. It's really not that important what the numbers are. What matters is that it's a different pattern, right? So here's like basically 90, 90, 90, 80, 76, 80. It's like, whoa, big difference here. So that's how you use these reports. Now, the stick rate is the one that I really like to use because this one tells us what the average stick rate is of our users. Now, stick rate is defined as the number of months that they rebill. And this is an important thing because when you're working with paid traffic and you're acquiring customers, all of the efforts you're putting in, regardless of paid traffic, SEO, whatever, all these time and effort and resources, whether it's money or time, or your team's efforts, they all go into acquiring customers. That's the point of the business, right? That's why you're in business, to acquire customers. So your business is out there acquiring customers. And if you have recurring, it's important to know how much can you count on them, right? How many months in particular can you count on them to rebuild? So in this case, the February group here, so we have 25 and then 28 started, 25 were left over. Then there was 21 people, then it was 19 people, then it was 14 people. Well, down here is the actual stick rate. So basically, everybody in the February group stuck around for 1 month in February, which was true because they bought in February. So, month 0 for them is February. By March, basically everybody, right? Not quite everybody, but almost everybody. So now the stick rate was basically 1.9, almost 2. Then here it's about, roughly 2.5. Here it's roughly about 3 months. And the stick rate will continue to go up as long as there are people to stick. So in this case, currently for the February group, right, our February buyers, they stuck at an average of 3.8 up until this point in time, as far as whatever the data is in this data range. So at this point in time, 3.8 months. Our March people can be counted to stick around for 3.5 months. Our April people so far, 2.8 months. Our May people, 1.8. Now, why do these numbers go down? Just because there hasn't been enough months yet, right? So I don't think there's a problem here. This is not how you use this report. It's different from retention. Retention, you can see if there's a problem kind of early on and be like, oh, wait a second. Why did they only do 80? That's weird. Like, let's just see if that that pattern holds true. And if this one shows up around 80, I've got a problem because it's way below the 90 that I was doing. So let's figure out what's going on. But with stick, the way that I like to use this is really focusing on this top number up here and going all the way over to just get an idea. Remember, as long as you have buyers, your stick rate will climb, but it kind of starts off quick. It kind of climbs very quickly, almost like a reverse hockey stick where it goes up really, really quick. And then all of a sudden it starts to level off. And you can see that here. If I come back, you see this little 1, 1.8, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, right? And it kind of goes up. Now I'm in the 5s. Then all of a sudden I'm in the 6s. Well, then look how long I stay in the 6s. Right? And it's going up smaller and smaller in incremental bunches because there's just less buyers at this point that are left over. So roughly, right? So I can say, okay, my stick rate is 6.94 months. So my stick rate's roughly 7 months on average. So then what I can say is on average, a buyer will stick around for 7 months. Some will stick around for much, much longer. Some will not. Right. And that's how that works. And so again, that becomes my forecast, my prediction for future results. So if I know a buyer, let's say averages 7 months, and let's say I want to be conservative and I go, well, yeah, but I don't want to bet money on that 7 months, even though I'm pretty sure, let's make sure that it's a bonus. Let's just say they stick around for at least, 3 months. Right. And I would say 6 months would be the number I would really use in real life. If this was my own personal data, I would look at this and say 6 months I'm pretty safe on. But let's say 3 months, which I'm super safe on. I'm basically going to keep everybody for 3 months. Like on average, it's a really, really good guess. I'm going to keep them for 3 months based on this data. I'll probably keep them for 6 months. But let's say I can just count on them conservatively. I'm being super conservative here that I only do 3 months. Well, if I do 3 months, $47 a month, 3 times $47, let's rough it out and say it's $150. That means I'm basically counting on every single buyer that comes in is worth $150 to me. Right? That's good to know because if I know that every buyer is worth $150 and that's what I'm going to predict forward, right? As I start marketing forward, I'm going to predict and forecast that my buyers are now worth at least $150. That means I can spend up to let's say a third of that, maybe half of them being aggressive to actually acquire the customer. So I can spend up to $50 to acquire a customer, knowing I'm going to net, $100 because I'm going to gross 150, cost me $50 to acquire them. I'm going to be left with $100 to grow the company. So that's not bad, not a bad deal. And in my case, again, I would legitimately, I think there's enough data back here to say I'm at least going to get to 6, right? At least 6 months on average. I'm pretty safe to say. And with time, it might go even higher. But let's say for now, 6 months. So if 6 months means on average, right? If I have 10 buyers, I'm roughly going to make about $300 per buyer. Some are going to be longer, some are going to be shorter. But again, how long does it take me to make that money? That's the key. Because it doesn't mean in 6 months I'm going to have all of this money back, right? But on average, I'm going to average about $300 per buyer. So in that case, maybe I can double my CPAs and I can go a little bit higher and say, okay, well, I want to pay $100 to acquire a customer. I'll pay up to $100 to acquire a customer, knowing that over 6 months, I'm going to have, on average, $300 coming in, and I should net $200. Again, it might take a little bit longer to get that money back, but at least it gives me an idea on how to acquire. Personally, as much as I do like, and as I talk myself through this, doing the same thing here, I like the 6 months. I like knowing that 6 months is probably the right number. But when I go to forecast in terms of paid traffic, I like thinking, okay, let's get my money back as fast as possible. I don't like it being out there in the marketplace for that long. So I want to make my money back within 90 days if I can. So when I'm going to pay traffic, and really that's the easiest thing to measure is out to 90 days. So I'm going to start thinking, okay, well, let's pay traffic. Let's put $50 on the table and let's see what I can turn that into in 90 days. I'm pretty safe to say within 90 days, I'm going to have, three months coming in. Yeah. Okay. They'll probably stick around for at least 3 months. I go into retention rate and I can see, 3 months in, I have 80% of my people, right? This month 1, month 2, month 3, I have 80% of my people. Okay. So that's fine. So 8 out of 10 people are going to stick around, roughly is what this is telling me. Again, if that's at $50 a head, right? So I've got 8 times $50, $400. That's what I'm going to make off that. So, okay, I can pay, so that gives me, a little bit at this point in time, that's how much money I'm going to be making, how much it acquired for those customers. Again, if I do 8 times, let's say it was $50 to acquire the customers, 8 times 50, $400. So basically it'll be 3 months until I break even. And then every other month after that is profit. If I believe 6 months is my magic number, then it means I'm going to make my money in these second half of the months. Right. So this is how you can start planning things out and realizing like, man, do I really want to make my cost per acquisition so high? Do I want to make money faster? Do I want to be positive earlier? Do I want to adjust funnels? Maybe put some high-end offers in there, right? This is assuming there's just one product, but there might be some other things that you can do to ask them to buy other products that you might have or cross-sell or other things to generate revenue. So anyway, just some ideas of how you can use this tool. And I realize this tool is not the easiest thing to jump in. It's not super simple like Data Studio reports are, nice little pretty dashboards. This is a complicated thing. So again, if you're already feeling like, holy cow, slightly overwhelmed or frustrated by what your eyes kind of glaze over, like I get it. Spreadsheets are not the easiest thing, especially cohort reports, which is what this is, grouped by details here. But it's worth working with your implementer, with your builder, with whoever is your numbers person in your company to say, hey, take a look at this tool. Let's go ahead and make a copy of it. Let's play around with it, dump our details in here, and then use the retention rate planner. And let's figure out what our retention rate really is by product, right? By these specific products that we have. Let's figure out our stick rate, which will also be by whatever the product is. Actually, it's whatever you use on the retention rate will automatically show up here as stick rate. So you can see stick rate by product. And then you can start to predict out, okay, what are the different models? What might happen if we do a cost per acquisition of $50? What would we think would happen over the next 90 days? How much money should we make? Is that what we want to make? Is that enough profit for us? All that sort of stuff goes into play. So with that, we will go ahead and start to wrap this up. And again, I realize this is one of the more complicated strategy sessions because this isn't here's how to use this report. And there wasn't a lot of details on how to do that because I don't think as a strategist, we really need to know how to do that. As an implementer, you do. As a builder, you do. We have an entire win course, incidentally, on retention, churn, stick, and cohorts. It's a I believe it was 6-part series. So that's how big this is. This is nothing you're going to, watch a quick little, 20, 30-minute video on and be an expert on this. We have an entire course on this. So if you are interested in that, make sure to check that out. If you're already a member of Win Monthly Pass or of the Academy, you've got access to it. It's already in your Win Courses area in the members section. So again, Win, Retention, Churn, Stick, and Cohorts. But at least you got one new thing, one new idea. Now, before I go too far, I want to make sure I tell you how to get this, because I know already thinking, how do I even get that? Here's what you do. Go to measure.tips, and then you do /, and then when you do that, so measure.tips /, and then you're going to come into direct RCS. So this is what you need to do. So just go to measure.tips direct RCS. So that is that. And then once you go there, so measure.tips /direct RCS, it'll take you directly to that report. In fact, I'm just going to show you this. So measure.tips /direct RCS is what you want to do. Hit enter, takes you directly to it. From there, if you're signed into Google, you'll be able to make a copy of it. If you're not signed in, just get signed into Google, whatever your Google account is, make a copy of it, and then you're off to the races. Just follow these directions, and you should be good to go. All right, so let's go ahead and move on now. If we talked about the wins already, again, measure.tips /courses will take you there. Again, one in particular that would be really good if you want to get into retention, churn, cohorts, understanding how the numbers actually get there is really what that talks about. So you have a solid basis. Like you get retention, you get how to use retention, you get how to use stick, you get how to use cohorts, cohort reports, and all of that other stuff. So, but there's lots of other win courses as well. So measure.tips /courses will take you there. If you are part of a team, I think measure.tips /start will take you to Measurement Marketing Academy. In fact, I know that it will, but Measurement Marketing Academy is the better product because it's got 4 logins. It's made for teams. It includes every single win course that's back there, including retention, churn, stick, and cohorts. And it has a bunch of other stuff, including private coaching, group coaching, which we give our Academy members, which happens every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And that's called Academy Office Hours. So it's our member Q&A, and literally you just jump on there and talk through whatever questions, comments, concerns that you have over your own implementation, over how to use your retention reports, over, what should be a goal, like anything. It doesn't matter how beginner oriented the question is or how advanced the question is. We're willing to help out as much as we can on there, and you'll be chatting with a measurement marketing instructor each and every time. So these are people who use Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics each and every day, and they're doing it to measure their marketing. And they're doing it for themselves and in our case for other clients. So we're always out there with lots of different experience. So it's worth picking our brain. And then sometimes it's just easier to talk through issues. So that's why we give you that access as well. All part of the Academy. Now, next week's topic is another strategy session because it just happens to be one of those months where there are 5 Wednesdays. And when we do that, there's a second strategy session. So this one's definitely going to be on the easier end in terms of content. So it's reading your traffic story in Google Analytics, and it's going to talk about the source medium report and how to really understand sort of what traffic is causing what results and making sure that you have a proper traffic story back there, which many times you don't. And you're not able to see a story because there's nothing to tell. And then you go back to your implementers and say, listen, here's some tips that you can use to actually help me see the story. And we'll talk about that as well. So that'll help you with that. Of course, if you are not yet a part of Workshop Wednesday, I encourage you to join that, measure.tips/WW. It is currently free, and it is the only way that you get access to every single Workshop Wednesday. Not all of these are made public. I believe this one will be, in fact, made public, but not all of them will be. So you have to be on the list in order to see measure.tips/WW. We'll get you there. And of course, that brings us to a close. You've just watched Strategy Session using recurring billing reports to improve your results. Thanks again for watching this workshop, and we will see you on the next. Take care.